I had a thought, and we can talk more. I don't know if you have any questions or within any specifics or anything, but I did think of something. First of all, I have in my researches and restudying again, been paying a lot more attention specifically to John Williams and his score. I know you said that he was kind of one of your big inspirations and stuff, and it makes really good sense. And I get that, and I was really trying to pay attention to how he plays his music to, I mean, really just catches the visceral movement of the picture. And of course it's he and Spielberg, kind of working together, and they've found that groove. But things will fly past a character's face in the scene, and you hear this like in the music, but it's completely still part of the score. It's I was paying attention to that kind of stuff, and it got me really excited about talking to you about getting those emotions and hit, and the structure, how the story is structured, and the way that its content is. We definitely have that, or those moments to elicit great like sadness and empathy from the audience, to elicit great inspiration in themselves. Just that feeling you get when you watch a certain movie or hear a certain song, like when it clicks, and you get that inspired, like we can do that, like they've overcome. The example I was kind of thinking of, or the idea I had, was the only example I could think of that best worked would be like the Indiana Jones movies, and how they open and you hear that indie theme, right? Dun, 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 dun. And it's so like, I mean, it's brilliant, it's genius, it's great, but it's inspiring. I mean, it can be recreated. It's using major chords. It's you can play something that is going to elicit somewhat of an inspirational, or is meant to elicit an inspirational emotion from the audience. Just like you can play, heavy, obas and stuff like that, deep to resonate, dark or moody or villainous, that type of thing. So I know the exact moment. I can point it to you in the page of the script, the exact scene where that song will come back in, four-fifths the way through the movie, and it's right after she gets the water from the Marauder out of the trailer, fights, struggles, and then she breaks away and she runs off, and the Marauder kind of sits there and watches her go away, and it cuts to her running, and it's right before she meets the soldier. That cut right there, when we cut to that, that's where this theme song, if you will, the indie theme song, will come back. So I think we open the whole movie with it in its
You're like a real strong kind of theme that catches you, grabs you, like right from the start, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes. And you only hear it in its fullest, most powerful, presence and form in the very opening of the film, and 4/5 of the way through, right where I explained, right before the soldier and right after she gets the water. We're going to hit it the exact same. So you're going to hear it in that full inspirational part in the very opening and at that moment. And if we hit that right, that will be just the right step to bring the audience out of that middle, quote unquote, boring or slow meat of the story. Is the hardest thing to get the audience through. But the structure of the screenplay, I think, and the pacing of it is well enough that they will stay entertained through. And then when we give them that reward, if you will, for sitting through the middle, and we're now entering into the climax of the story, that music will come back that got them so inspired in the beginning, so excited to watch this story. If you think about it, it's kind of almost slowly gone downhill, their excitement level, until this very moment, and then we're going to hit them with that music again and bring them right back in so that we can finish the climax and the rest of the story. So
like an adrenaline shot.
yeah. And literally what I'm picturing in my mind for the opening, I already have the opening shot in my head of, an anthill and the feet running of the junkie. That's the opening shot in the opening scene. And I didn't know what to do with the titles, whether just have no title or just put the title The Anthill and then let's go, or do an opening titles after the scene with the junkie and before Bellabone wakes up. Hold on, I'm gonna close this door. But I think what we should do, if you understand what I'm saying in terms of what to do with the music there, and you like that idea, I would like the opening, basically that song, whatever piece of music that you write and you come up with, minute to 2 minutes in length, kind of a theme song, if you will, we'll call it, for the piece, that we just let that song play over, and what I'm going to do is have that opening shot start as basically just black screen, and that opening shot will be a dot, and however long it takes for that song, that piece of music to play, by the time it finishes, that dot will slowly scale up and expand and fill the frame into the opening shot, and then the story will go. And during that time, we're just going to lay the titles over it, Abigail Ritchie, all the cast, the composer, producer, writer, director, just throw the credits over that, kind of like opening a Pulp Fiction, but in reverse, where the title's going from big and fading black, and then they just put the credits over it. This is going to be the reverse. So it's going to start as nothing, and it's going to then fill the frame of that picture. And the piece of music over it is just going to be that Indiana Jones thing, something just adventurous, exciting, and things like that. So that was kind of the thought I had, and I wondered what your take on was that.
So you said starting with this dot that expands to the full frame. Did I understand that right? Like it starts small and.
Yeah, if you know anything about video editing, basically you just scale the video down to 0, put a time frame, or a keyframe, and then let's say the song's 2 minutes and 22 seconds, then you just go to 2 minutes 22 seconds and put a keyframe and put the scale at 100, where it just fill the what the shot is, and then just hit render, and then so it'll automatically go from 0 scale to 100% scale, filling the frame.
Yes, it's interesting. It's a long time.
Yeah.
To be from to just be expanding inward like that. I could also see musically something that just has a real big build, so it starts very kind of, I don't know, almost even ominous or mysterious, and then it builds and builds and builds, and then once we get that shot in full frame, that's where the beat lands, the big that's the big moment where things start, and it's hitting the ground running, and I don't know. That's another option. And so then it would play through maybe that first opening shot. Perhaps, I don't know. What other thoughts?
I think because I just see I see it once the shot fills the frame. I see the music coming down, and very similar to how I'm going to use a lot of John Williams reference, but how the music in every Star Wars opens. It opens with that big, theme that you love and goes, and then how it ends and just kind of tails off. Do you know what I mean? And then the story starts. That's how I see the music playing when this opening image comes in, and the music will just kind of die down and kind of fade into the background, and then we see the feet of the junkie running towards camera and rushing past frame, and then cut to him running, and then the music will be very dun, 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 running and suspense. So you got it.
See, so like we go to new cue, like at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're in a new place here.
Yeah.
Now the story's.
Now what's going on? Ooh, running. Who's this? Yeah, Yeah.
Okay.
Very similar to Star Wars, like the opening of Star Wars. Same.
Yeah. No, totally. Like that's Star Wars kind of like ends with this like real mysterious like chord that's like arpeggiated. And it's kind of like, whoa, like what's going to happen? Like anything can happen because of the way those like opening titles end. Kind of like what you were talking about where it like drifts off. It's just this real mysterious sound. And so like out of that, he like evolves to, like the next cue, which is, depending on the movie, just like where the story, initializes. And
right. And then after that,
is being chased or whatever it is,
Exactly. And then after that opening scene with the junkie, then we go into Bellabone waking up in her room, and then we kind of go with the theme and the things that you've already sent and you're already working on, that kind of Bellabone theme. So I think the opening, the Indiana Jones scene, that big musical score, like, isn't necessarily Bellabone's theme. It's kind of the anthem, if you will, of the picture, And we're only going to hear it twice. It's going to be the best, it's going to be the most poppy, if you will, the most piece of music in the entire score. Not to say that it's going to be necessarily the best or the most intricate or anything like that, but it should be the poppiest, the one that gets them, the one that the audience wants to hear more. Like they hear it in the opening and it immediately grabs them. They're like, this is fucking great. Can't wait for this adventure. And they aren't going to hear that same piece of music or get that until until we get into the fourth act, after we make it through that middle chunk. I don't know how to fully explain it. I mean, I've just seen it done so many times in so many movies, that I just think it works. I think this is a perfect opportunity to try that out,
Yeah. What would you say, like, this starting theme kind of like represents for you? If we go back to like Star Wars, those opening titles, the melody that's playing over that is Luke's theme throughout the movie. So a lot of, scenes involving Luke later on, keep incorporating that melody. And it's just in a bunch of different contexts and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a classic motif, like, all kinds of movies have a theme that represents a character. Other movies have like a theme that represents like an idea, like it represents sadness or loss, or it represents victory, or just all kinds of stuff, or maybe it represents a thing, like an object that a character is pursuing. But I find it's like helpful when we're thinking about themes, if there's like something we can point to for like what it represents in the story.
I have that answer for you exactly. I think that theme of that opening piece of music should represent the movement of the revolution. You know what I mean? Because you've read the very ending, right? The post credits, if you will.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I haven't read your whole script yet.
Oh, it's okay.
I've read a portion of it.
No worries. So it ends. I have a post credit scene in the script that basically all it is, she goes to bed and ends the day, and that's it, and gets her time with her son. And then at night, alarms are going off. She wakes up, and H and the officer, Chris or whatever his name is, I forget, like has their son, and they're like the North is attacking. Like now's our time to escape, and so they like escape, and that's how the whole picture ends. And then in my head have a whole idea for a story of her leading a revolution against the corporation, the Confederates, and that whole thing. So if that piece of music, I think, should represent then not necessarily Bella Bone's theme for her, for the character, but the overall macro, resistance, revolution, fights, what her character is then going to eventually lead and become. I've been watching a lot of Terminator lately, so that Terminator theme kind of, leading the resistance, or future leader, which may be able to play, and that first piece of music should probably have all the elements in it, right? Of, like, what do you call it when an orchestra or musical, like the opening piece of music, and it's big but they kind of run you through all the different themes, or at least play parts of them. You can hear kind of Alan Silvestri's score in Predator.
Sure, perhaps.
What's that? Yeah, an overture. Yeah, a bit. But Alan Silvestri in Predator, the opening title sequence, when the helicopters are coming in on the beach and stuff like that, you hear every theme that he's going to play throughout the entire movie. But he has the main, driving force of it. But he brings in and shows you the different elements. So I think that main piece of music can introduce the themes and the elements that we're gonna go out. I'm sorry if I'm throwing like a lot at you in terms of like ideas and stuff, but take.
Honestly, I love just that we have so much time to kind of like let this thing breathe.
Right.
I feel like that's going to be really cool. Like, it's like, because a lot of times when I'm working, I have to kind of like rush through this stuff,
Yeah.
It's so great to like be able to like sit down and talk about it, and to have this time where we can go back and forth about it, and like I can send you like musical examples and like get your input and stuff, and we have all this time to like develop it before it's even been shot.
Yeah. I wrote down also, I could literally like go through the script and tell you like what music cues I see in terms of like when I know I'm gonna have a song play, or when I know like some score would be needed. Is that something you would want to have, or not nearly at this point, closer to, when we're actually getting,
Yeah, well, what I would say for now is important stuff like just thematic and tone ideas are totally things we can kind of start to work through. In terms of like individual cues, like perhaps this like opening is maybe an exception, because we can kind of, in a sense, design the movie a little bit around it. Perhaps is maybe what you're thinking.
Yeah.
You talk about like stretching the time out of like that opening and stuff to kind of correspond to it. But in terms of like individual cues, those will be kind of real married to picture. Like it'll in terms of like stuff like timing and emotion on screen and things like that. Like so much will be apparent once there is like a picture to work with. You know?
Yeah. Or maybe like a number of different themes that I see. Like definitely we have one for Bellabone, and then kind of this overall score.
So
any of that's something.
That kind of thing. Yeah, it's like what we can kind of like work through. We can work through like general themes, like general sort of like ideas we should hit upon and things like that. It's just going to be kind of like vague at the moment, right? Like it's not going to be like totally specific to like, oh, this will go exactly here or something like that. But like just general tone and stuff like that. Totally is avenues we can start thinking about.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll start thinking about that more. Did you have any other questions off the bat?
Not that I can really think of. I think I would be glad to kind of try, just based on kind of like all this, seeing what comes to mind with like an opening cue, like you're saying, where the picture slowly fades in, or what, however it exactly happens. I think that's really interesting, and it's the opening of the film, right? So it's
Yeah.
like that's
It's all you. All spotlight will be on you, brother. Black screen and
so
just the music.
just one thing to figure out musically. It's the very first thing that happens.
I know, right? Yeah. You could do. There's. I don't know if how much truth there is to this or what have you, but I have spoken to a few insiders. But to stick with the Star Wars thing, the old story is that George Lucas, right, made American Graffiti and THX, and like the studio's like, okay, go make your thing. So he goes and makes this stupid, ridiculous sci-fi script that like nobody has any idea when they read it. They don't understand it, nothing. He goes off to London. He spends all their money. He comes back. He shows them the first cut without John Williams' score yet, and they all say this is the biggest piece of shit. It doesn't make any sense, but nobody will watch it. Blah blah blah. He gives it to John Williams. John Williams, in his brilliance, sees what the picture needs. And what is the very first thing that you hear in any Star Wars, and that movie, you know, but any Star Wars film? It's just, bah! I mean, he just hits you full front. So, like you're talking about, what is that first thing that you hear? He decided to go massively big in the opening, you know, and then bring it down into his thing. So it's interesting that you brought that up, because that's I can't say for sure what would work better or not, and we don't know have the finished film to be able to play it and see. But you're exactly right in your terms. You're thinking of like, what is the very first thing you want people to hear? You know what I mean? Because that it will play out, you know. And you start it slow and quickly build. Do you start out bam at the top like John Williams did and pull it back? That's something you can play around with, and I have no say either way. You know, I don't really care. I'm not musically inclined, and I know I listen to a lot, you know, and I understand some theory about it. But yeah, you're definitely right in thinking that. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, well, I can kind of roll with that. In terms of like, we could also maybe talk about like what sorts of sounds we're kind of like envisioning. I mean, that first thing I sent you is, of course, like really electronic, all synths, basically, and then of course the drums. Then there's other, you know, there's all kinds of instruments up there. So that, you know, there's orchestral instruments, there's you know, guitars and bass and all that. You know, is there anything like that you kind of just lean towards off the bat, you know, just in a general way, with where your story is at?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind, and tell me your thoughts on this. I think, based on our last conversation and just your initial go at the music, I think you were kind of feeling like exploring some like 80s pop, you know?
Yeah,
which
it is very 80s.
Yeah, which
I like influence definitely the, like, you know, Terminator and like just like those like 80s action movies.
Yes, you're right in that. What I don't want is Stranger Things, or It Follows. Both of those scores are throwbacks to 80s score, but they're throwbacks to like really shitty 80s scores, like, you know, like Friday the 13th, or, you know what I mean, like Halloween's a great score, but you know, in its simplicity, but I don't like that recreation of it. I like
it's not like an authentic recreation of like the 80s,
right,
of an 80s synth score. Like it'll like you're kind of envisioning something that has like depth and a lot of real kind of modern and contemporary sounds as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some like 80s synth with fucking somebody on a drum kit, for sure. And I would love some fucking riffs, from a electric guitar. And I mentioned it the first time we met, but if you look at check out Jonathan Davis, he's lead singer for Korn, and he did a solo album last year or 2018. I don't know the name of it, but it's like a black and white kind of cover. But he was heavily influenced by The Cure, and but then like did Korn, which is very heavy metal, but their music is very proggy, I guess, But on this solo record, you can see those early 80s synth influences in his and how it filtered through his modern day rock and what instruments he brought to use for that record. I think the feel of that record feels very much like how I think we could deliver on the score of this, of completely modern, music, but with just a hints underlying of synth and pop, 80s pop. Yeah, The Cure, Duran Duran. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's all really good to think about, and I think a lot of that is stuff I'll have to check out as well, because I'm not aware of it, or I'm not aware of the Jonathan Davis album anyway.
Yeah.
So I'll check that out.
Cool. And yeah, I just found somebody to start working on costumes, and so in a few weeks we should have Bella Bones costume ready, and then gonna start camera testing and that kind of thing, and just moving the ball forward, yard by yard. I still think September will open up, or I think we'll be open up enough by September. I'm pretty sure that there's going to be another wave coming in the winter time, in terms of like lockdown and quarantine and stuff like that. But so I'm really shooting to capture all of this in September, October, in that, which doesn't affect you at all. It's not like you're but
yeah, well, I mean, I have just the highest hopes for the project, and I hope like circumstances improve, because like I need people making films.
Right.
You need to make your film as well.
Yeah, completely, totally. Let's see. I think. Yeah, I think that's about it. I'll mention it again, but write down the Dread soundtrack.
Yeah, I just watched it last night, actually.
Okay, perfect. Do you see what I'm saying? And that piece of music you even sent me, like, I don't know if you could tell, but I'm like, dude, it fits right into that. Like,
cool.
You get what I'm saying with that driving kind of.
Yeah, driving, total balls to the wall kind of momentum throughout that score,
Yeah, the thing that upset me, the only thing that upset me with that score is that, and maybe this is we'll probably hopefully have to deal with a similar situation or problem, is that there wasn't enough of the score, or the score didn't last long enough in the scene. Like, the music was so great, I just wanted it to play and play and play, but because it was cued to the visuals, it couldn't have that same driving, thing of every time. And it was, when the motorcycle, right after the chase, he has to bring the music down and kind of switch it up. But I'm like, that driving when he's, on the motorcycle in that opening scene, and he's like, I'm going after him and chasing, and that music kicks in, that drums and that pacing, I was like, fuck, man, I could watch that for like 90 seconds of a scene of him just driving through, and hearing that. But of course you can't, you gotta stick with the picture. But that's the kind of problem I'd like us to have, is like, we have such a cool ass piece of music that the whole time people are just gonna want to be hearing that, and they'll be hearing slices of it and like, oh, is that it? No, it's not exactly right. No, that's not exactly it. That's not exactly it. And then boom, when we hit them in that, as we go into the fourth act, we'll give it all to them, which Dredd does the exact same thing when he is beaten up and brodied and you know, he's out of ammo, and then he kills those 3 guys and gets ammoed up and he's ready to go and he's going to go back to, that's the exact same moment that I'm talking about, structure wise. And you watch the film and that music comes in again. It's the same, you know.
Well, and he was kind of like at like his lowest point.
Exactly.
And, like, we as an audience were like, well, gee, who's he even going to make it? But then it's like he comes back like in full force, and
right.
The score is totally like reinforcing that.
It's that's exactly what I'm going for.
Or like,
yeah.
And it's complete, like, total energy, you know, in a way that we hadn't heard it before, prior to that in the film.
That's exactly what I'm going for, dude. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the structure is there on paper, you know. And look, dude, this is my first film I've ever directed, feature film, right? So, like, I'm a rookie as well, you know. And I was even just before this call kind of thinking, I'm like, you're really planning on delivering, you know. And I was like, I guess that's what great directors or good film, you know, they do, is like to try to plan that whole thing from, you know, these things don't happen by accident, I don't think, you know. And so yeah, I think it's worth, you know, putting the time in to plan for that. Now it's just all about the execution on all these great ideas.
Totally.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, I'm really excited. I think it's going to be such a fun genre for me to like work with too, because I don't have, like, you know, much like this in my catalog.
Yeah.
So, like, I think it'll be really great for me to totally, like, you know, just really experiment with it and really just go with what the picture's calling for.
Yeah, I love it, man. I couldn't be happier and more excited. I think you're for being as young and handsome as you are, I think you're extremely intelligent, well thought, very you know, high emotional intelligence as well in terms of as a human being, and I think that will portray I mean, it already portrays in your music, but to be able to grab that and attach it to this picture, I'm super excited for. It's a good thing you reached out to me in the first place.
Yeah, I'm really happy too. I think this is going to be such an awesome project.
Sweet, cool, man. Any other questions or whatever, you know, I'm always open. Feel free to hit me up anytime. I'm just going to keep plugging away, and yeah, I'll send you ideas if I got them, and if you got stuff, I'll bounce them.
Yeah, I think, like, next step, I will think about that opening, and I'll see if I can, like, get something to you, you know, like, in maybe, like, by, like, Sunday or something, like, maybe.
There's no rush, you know.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
One other film that came in today, actually, and that I'm going to need to start working on right away. But, like, you know, I'm totally committed to, like,
we've got time, brother.
Exploring this film as well, you know, at the moment, and yeah, like you say, we got time, so that'll be a real blessing.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.